Welcome to Instruction Discussion, our weekly look at the latest topics and trends in education affecting schools here on Long Island and schools around the world. Whether you're a teacher, parent, or student, listen for tips and strategies to help you navigate the educational landscape. There's a bell. It's time to start today's Instruction Discussion on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello, I'm Kevin Boston Hill, and welcome to Instruction Discussion, where each week we will examine a recent trend or development in education and its impact on Long Island. The pandemic has cast a spotlight on a number of issues plaguing our society. Most notably is the rise of bullying and other violent acts. Schools continue to look for ways to make their students more empathetic towards one another. One such strategy has been the use of PETA's TeachKind curriculum. While many of our listeners may know of TeachKind through one of our previous episodes or from TeachKind's animal-friendly idioms, such as feed two birds with one scone and bring home the bagels, all people may be surprised to know how PETA works with tens of thousands of people across the country to help them incorporate kindness into the curriculum. With TeachKind's 20th anniversary approaching, it is important to note the various free resources that are available to schools to help them teach about empathy, lessons that can pay off now and for years to come. As the saying goes, teaching a child not to step on a caterpillar is as valuable to the child as it is to the caterpillar. To help us with this discussion and provide some valuable resources, today we welcome back to the classroom PETA's Program Manager of TeachKind, Lisbet Chiriboga. Welcome back to Instruction Discussion on 90.3 WHPC.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. Pleasure to be back.
Great. As always, it's great to have you back and to discuss something that is, again, very timely in our society today. And that's just talking about the discussion around empathy and social emotional learning and so forth. So before we get into TeachKind and whatnot, just kind of catch us up. What are some of your views on where we stand as a society when it comes to the teaching of empathy?
Yeah, sure. It's definitely some challenging times. Just like to let everyone know, again, that TeachKind is the Humane Education Division at PETA, and we are all former classroom teachers that work with schools, teachers, homeschoolers, and parents around the U.S. and Canada to help them incorporate compassion for animals into student learning. Yes, so you mentioned, how this learning is very much needed. Yes, we urgently need to help young people find things to care about, which will then empower them to take compassionate action to help the world and not hurt others. We've been seeing, I talk to teachers around the country on a regular basis, and I'm just hearing they're seeing behaviors they've never seen before. So it's an alarming trend. But one thing we know is that kids love animals. So it's really the lowest hanging fruit right now that schools can take advantage of at this moment. And incorporating compassion for animals into the curriculum is easy, and it will not take away from instructional time. In fact, it will actually enhance it. So we have numerous resources at teachkind.org for free.
So let's get into that a little bit as far as the curriculum. And so, and for the benefit of those who may be new to our program and may not have heard of TeachKind before, I mean, it's been around for almost 20 years now, but for those who may not have heard of TeachKind, explain to our listeners exactly what it is and how the curriculum is used by or is available to different schools.
Again, we're all former classroom teachers in the TeachKind division at PETA. It's the Humane Education Division. And we create lessons and materials for all students from kindergarten straight up to 12th grade to help them develop empathy for all beings while simultaneously honing their academic skills. We know that there's no extra time in the day for teachers. So that's why we like to feed two birds with one stone by, helping children develop empathy and having them practice academic skills as well. And TeachKind was created in response to a need Bullying and violence by young people are happening at alarming rates these days, and educators were contacting PETA looking for ways to help their students develop greater compassion. So TeachKind is PETA's response to those requests, and our resources provide opportunities for students to feel a sense of responsibility and to develop the values necessary to become confident, capable, compassionate citizens. How we work with schools and teachers and parents and homeschoolers really varies a lot, but I'll give you a few examples. So sadly, well, actually, let me start off with a nice way. We do outreach at education conferences. So we've had exhibits at the National School Board Association conference, at the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development conference recently. We'll very likely be have an exhibit at the New York State School Board Association conference that's coming up in the fall. And we also, a lot of teachers, numerous teachers, I talk to teachers all the time, they contact us looking for ways to combat the antisocial behavior. And they know, I mean, I don't have to try to convince any educators how kids already love animals. We know that. If you work with children, you already know that. So, but one thing I love is that when I'm giving advice or guidance to teachers, and we go through the different resources and the different ways to incorporate compassion for animals into the curriculum, I hear so many times, and it just inspires me all the time, that it rejuvenates them. They tell me it reminds them why they got into teaching in the first place. Because, you know, with so much testing, so much focus on testing, as well as the pandemic teaching that's going on, so that's very stressful for them. It helps bring them back, and in an educationally sound way, because we've heard many times from administrators that we work with that our materials are very practical and educationally sound. So another way that we interact with schools, which is kind of a sad way, but it's important to note, are when there are cruelty cases allegedly perpetrated by children or teens in a community. And this is happening in alarming rates. Just this past January, there was a case where a high school student in Ohio allegedly hit a dog with his car, took the dog's decapitated head, placed it on a guardrail, then posted about it on social media. So many of the school districts surrounding where this incident took place saw that the whole community had been affected and were eager to work with TeachKind to incorporate empathy for animals into school programming to prevent future tragedies. And we continue to support those districts with free resources. Sadly, this latest case of cruelty to animals is not an isolated incident. TeachKind regularly hears about these reports, and lately it's been on a weekly basis, and then sometimes multiple cases we hear about on a weekly basis. So we created a web page to call attention to this disturbing trend, and it's called kidshurtinganimals.peta.org.
All right, let me pause you there really quickly because I want to get into something that you just touched on, because it sounds like when children are affecting or hurting animals in such a way that they're broken inside. And so how can PETA's or even the TeachKind curriculum or any other resource that you have, how can that connect to getting those additional mental health resources that may be necessary to help correct what is broken within our youth?
Well, you see, when children learn kindness to animals, they take a key step toward rejecting all forms of violence and bullying. And, you know, this is more important now than ever, considering all the challenges students have faced during the pandemic. And now, you know, we're seeing it manifest with increased antisocial behaviors in schools and around the country. I was a teacher in New York. I'll give you an example. And one thing I would like to say is that teachers and educators can use TeachKind materials any way they want. You can use some of them, you can use the whole thing. But what the beautiful thing that happens is that once you start using some of the resources, then it's like a springboard, because teachers start to see other opportunities in their curriculum where they can incorporate compassion for animals. It just starts jumping out at them. But I would like to, give an example of how powerful this is. I was a teacher in the Bronx, in New York, in the Bronx, as I mentioned, for 12 years. And, I've had apathetic students with difficult behavioral issues become the fiercest protectors of animals, which then led to more empathy for their peers. So, to give an example, I showed a video of a puppy mill rescue to a class of sixth graders. And it showed images of rescuers using tools to cut open the cages to free the dogs because the cage doors had rusted shut. So it was very moving footage. And after the video, a boy raised his hand to joke about how another boy in the class cried during the video. And I explained to the class that it was okay to cry because it just showed that you're compassionate and caring. And as soon as I said this, a bunch of other hands went up to say that they cried too. Now, these were kids who lived in the projects. They had very rough lives and were not used to being able to let their guard down and show their emotions. So when I reflected on what had happened, I realized that we had created a safe space for these children to show their empathy. And that's why humane education helps both animals and children. You don't need to cry in order to be a compassionate person, but the key is to create safe spaces so that young people can show and practice their empathy. If they don't ever get to practice showing empathy, that could lead them down a dangerous path. So we encourage educators to tap into children's empathy with a topic they're naturally interested in, animals. And TeachKind resources can help with that.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that one thing that kind of unites all children, no matter what their background is, are animals. And because whenever you bring an animal into a classroom, it's like everything stops and all attention goes to that particular animal. So let me ask you this. Is there any particular caveats or other precautions that should be taken? Because we know that there are a lot of classrooms now that have like these classroom pets. And I guess one of the reasons for that is to help children kind of galvanize together to care for that particular animal. So are there any precautions or safeguards that need to be considered if a classroom does decide to go that route?
Well, I'm glad you brought up classroom pets, Kevin, because we advocate at TeachKind about having a class plant or other types of things for the class. When I was a classroom teacher, I never kept an animal in my classroom. And the reason is it's fraught with so many problems. We hear reports all the time about neglect of classroom pets. And something that I always ask teachers to consider is what happens to the classroom animal during a fire drill or any other evacuation procedure, or because when, many times those animals are just left behind because they're not part of the procedure. And what message is that sending to children? It sends a message to them that, take care of an animal only when it's convenient. So we really caution against, you don't need to bring animals into a classroom. And frankly, very busy teachers, with 25, 30 students in a classroom, you can never 100% guarantee the safety of the animal. So it's really not necessary. There are so many ways to incorporate compassion for animals without actually bringing an animal into the school, to add to, all your teachers' other responsibilities. And, I'd like to just offer some, information about our resources that can help with that, starting with our empathy building program for the elementary level, which is called Share the World, where we show children that the golden rule of treating others the way you wish to be treated applies to all living beings, not just humans. And it's great to, even, in the Bronx, I used to take the kids outside and look at the animals that live in their community like squirrels and the insects and the birds, to help them start thinking about their interactions, being thoughtful in their interactions with all the animals they'll encounter. And our Share the World program has really great lessons that help students to give them some different scenarios to think about. How do you apply the golden rule? How do you make sure you apply the golden rule in all these situations? Like you say you see an injured bird on the sidewalk and everyone's walking by the bird. Does that follow the golden rule? What could we do to help follow the golden rule in that situation? And also our social justice themed curriculum for the secondary level called Challenging Assumptions really empowers young people to challenge societal norms and inspires them to have empathy for others, regardless of species, race, gender, sexual identity. And both of these programs include thought-provoking lessons, inspiring videos, and they're also available digitally at teachkind.org for any educators who are still teaching virtually.
Thank you. And because I was actually going to ask if there was a difference between the curriculum for the younger group, because that's what this sounds like on the surface. Anyway, it sounds as if a lot of the curriculum is geared towards elementary school students. But I know it isn't. I know there are a lot of resources available for the secondary level students as well. So I'm glad you made that distinction. And it also sounds as if the Challenging Assumptions curriculum kind of leads or lends itself into project-based learning, so that the students kind of develop or can develop their own pathway of learning and come up with a project on their own and then go out and take that to the general population, whether it's addressing their local congressman or creating some kind of PSA or something like that. So was that kind of the purpose of the Challenging Assumptions curriculum?
Yes, you got that completely correct. They actually, all the lessons in Challenging Assumptions lead up to the last part of the unit, which is a service learning project, which is obviously very collaborative. It's for the students to look in their own communities and see what kind of issues they want to address that affect animals, whether dogs are being chained up 24 hours a day, or there are some interactions between maybe birds and store owners that need to be addressed in a humane way. So it really puts it gets the students together and looking at, something authentic, their world that they live in. And it gives them step-by-step instruction. Well, it gives the teachers a step-by-step guide in how to help the students put together a project like that. So it's very powerful.
You are listening to Instruction Discussion on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Kevin Boston Hill, and our guest today is the program manager of PETA's TeachKind program, Lisbet Chiriboga. Well, now let's get into, because I mentioned earlier during the introduction that TeachKind is approaching its 20th anniversary. So tell us a little bit about that. What are some of the any new developments that have come up as a result of that? Any ways that you're planning on celebrating this milestone? What's happening with TeachKind at this point?
Oh yes, so we're celebrating all year long the 20th anniversary, and one of the things that we're doing, because we don't think a celebration is complete without a party. So we're offering vegan food giveaways for teachers all year long. So every quarter. So they have 4 different chances, and all you need to do as a teacher is just let us know one thing that you're doing to incorporate compassion for animals into your curriculum, and we ask that you tag us on Instagram, and our name on Instagram is TeachKind at TeachKind Teachers. So we will just let us know, and then we choose a winner at random, and then we will give your whole class either vegan pizza, vegan ice cream, vegan milk and cookies, your choice. So it's for all grades too, so not just elementary. So, even secondary teachers, if, you teach obviously different classes, if you up to 100 students will provide this for you. So it's a great way to kind of energize. We're trying to give support to educators these days, a lot of support because they need it. The stress levels are high. A lot of teachers are looking to leave the profession. So we're trying to, give a little bit of an uplift with different things we're doing. So thankfully at PETA, we have the resources. We have a lot of donors who are very passionate about education. So we're able to offer this to teachers and, again, give them a little bit of an uplift during this difficult time teaching. So that's one of the exciting things we're doing. We also just chose the winners of our annual, but this was a special one since it was our 20th anniversary, our teacher appreciation contest. And as you know, this is the whole month is teacher appreciation, but we like to do that all year, but we had some wonderful, it was hard to decide. We had almost 100 entries from around the country, and so we chose them. So please go to teachkind.org and you can check out, read about the teachers who won the contest. We have 2 co-teachers, English teachers in San Antonio, Texas, who were the grand prize winners. And they're doing wonderful, amazing work with their students over down there. And then another winner was a kindergarten teacher in Arizona. Again, doing wonderful work with her kindergarten students, talking a lot about, she tells us there's a lot of people who chain dogs up 24 hours a day in her community. So she works to help her young students see animals as individuals and with needs. And another winner is a living environment science teacher, middle school in New York, in Yonkers. Mm-hmm. So she's doing wonderful work with her students, helping doing amazing work incorporating different animal issues throughout the curriculum. And last but definitely not least is a teacher that we've worked with a lot over the years out in California. He teaches science, environmental science at the high school level. So he's done a lot of things with his students, even taken them out to do something called trash fishing, which is when you go out and instead of fishing for fish, the animals, you fish for trash. So he's done that with them as well. So a lot of inspiring work still being done amidst such challenging times. So we really appreciate it. We want to appreciate these teachers, and we wanted to spotlight them. So please visit teachkind.org to find out more about them.
And it's amazing that, especially that last one you mentioned about the AP environmental science teacher, because that just goes to show you that this type of curriculum is not just for elementary school students. It's not just for middle school students. You can even teach the curriculum through advanced placement classes in high school. So I think it's really important for our listeners to understand that this is the type of curriculum that transcends all grade levels, and it's something that the students will be able to carry with them all throughout their lives.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. 20 years ago, our Share the World elementary school curriculum captured the attention of educators worldwide, even myself, because I was using it in my own classroom before I came to work at PETA 5 years ago. But more and more educators are realizing that this is what we need to incorporate and how it benefits everyone, children and animals. So it's a beautiful, world to create. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, just let me ask you really quickly. What is the difference between, I guess, the TeachKind.org and PETAKids.org?
Oh, I'm glad you brought up PETA Kids. So PETAKids.com is a website focused, geared towards children 12 and under. So as an elementary school teacher, I would have my own students, and I know many other teachers do as well, go on there to, research different animals and what's happening to them in the world. And there's no graphic images on PETAKids.com, so, it's age appropriate, so you can be assured of that. And TeachKind.org is for teachers. So that's where we have the lesson plans and the guidance, and we answer all your burning questions about how to incorporate compassion for animals into the curriculum. So that's the main difference. But yeah, please check out both. We have links to PETA Kids on the TeachKind website as well.
Is there a way for maybe teachers to add their own suggestions to some of the curriculum and lesson plans?
Oh, absolutely. As I mentioned, I thought I mentioned this previously, teachers can use as much of the resources that we have as they see fit in their own curriculum. It's a great springboard. I saw it before, when I used TeachKind resources in my own classroom before I came to PETA, that it's a beautiful springboard. It really ignites your imagination as to where there are other points in your curriculum that you can easily incorporate humane education resources. Just to give you another example, when in the younger elementary grades, it's very common to have a unit on animal coverings in science. Basically, teaching children which animals have fur, feathers, scales, and usually those lessons are just about, what the animal eats, what they look like, what their natural habitat is. But it's such a great opportunity to incorporate empathy for those animals as well, to talk about them as individual living beings and not just body parts. So we've created resources on our website specifically for that type of unit. But there's so many ways to incorporate compassion for animals that, sometimes, busy teachers just, don't think of. And that's why TeachKind is here, because we think about this 24 hours a day, and we're happy to help you. All you have to do is reach out to TeachKind.org. And, I love going through, I've gone through school curriculum maps and showed them exactly where in different units where they could incorporate compassion for animals based on the current curriculum they have. I love doing that. So feel free to reach out. We're happy to help and support compassionate teachers.
Thank you again for coming on. We would certainly like to thank our guest today, Program Manager of PETA's TeachKind program, Lisbet Chiriboga, for coming on to our show today.
Thank you so much for having me. And all our free learning resources are available again at teachkind.org. And you can also check out PETA.org for even more ways to help animals in your own neighborhood and around the world.
Once again, my name is Kevin Boston Hill, and thank you all for listening to Instruction Discussion right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.